Yeah, on record, Tshidi.
So anybody who gets elected deputy president of the ANC at this stage stays where they are. Should there be a vacancy, that would be a different story.
Hello and welcome to Politricking with Tshidi Madia. My name is Tshidi Madia. This is episode 2 of season 2 of a politics podcast brought to you by Eyewitness News. Remember, I said to you, a lot can happen in just a single day when it comes to the world of politics. Well, Gauteng is a new premier. Yeah, things happen very, very quickly. He is over-promising as expected. So Panyaza Lesufi has taken over from David Mabuza. The former education MEC is now Gauteng's number one. He's now running South Africa's engine as our number one citizen. And as I said, he is over-promising. I think Panyaza said, we'll deal with the issue of Nyaupe in 6 months. Everything's got like a 6-month timeline. When I heard some of the things he was saying, I kind of rolled my eyes really far back because, politicians and promises. We've lived through politicians and promises. And I say this because load shedding is still a factor. Politicians and promises. I must very quickly say, though, his trajectory has been interesting. Never mind his struggle credentials, and Panyaza has them. Panyaza, as a young man, wanted to do something about the state of the country. So I've got to give him kudos for all of that. But I also think from spokesperson to premier, man, give the man his flowers. I do think that you can't dismiss that, You can't dismiss that. That's a great feat. What he does between now and 2024 and beyond will be interesting to watch. For me, it's diminished by these weird promises that he's made because we are people who are hungry, tired, frustrated, want services delivered. So we want you to make big promises. But we want big promises to be followed by delivery. So I'm a little bit weary of that, but I'm going to give him. The trajectory is amazing. It is great. As an individual, Panya can look at himself and be like, I've done well for myself. And hopefully he does better to the betterment of us who live in Gauteng. Mpho Phalatse, former Joburg mayor, is still fighting to get back that mayoral chain. Herman Mashaba and his party, Action SA, are now rethinking this entire approach to coalitions. They've even put out a survey where they're asking the public to have a say on what the best way forward is when it comes to dealing with coalitions. What we've seen in 2016, what we are seeing now is not working. I don't want this at national level. I'm very weary of what happens in 2024. It's such an important era with the country on a downward trajectory that you want people who are able to arrest it. And yes, we keep saying coalitions are the future, and I think that's quite accurate. But can you imagine what coalitions that are working the way that these ones are, that function like this, will be like at national level? I think Gauteng is a definite. ANC is holding on to this province by a mere shoestring. And of course, another DA leader, young, black, talented, young, gifted and black, out the door. Once again, as far as the DA is concerned, this time it's Zwakele Mngwango in KZN. I imagine between that and having to answer to that, again, we keep asking the DA, why can you not retain black talent? Where do you go wrong? So between that and these coalitions where all the parties are calling the DA arrogant, I imagine Helen Zeller's having multiple mini meltdowns around this particular approach. And the coalition, mind you, from what I understand, is preparing for a loss of Ekurhuleni. People might not think there's a lot happening in Mogale City, but you know what? I'm pretty sure those conversations between the ANC and the EFF in Gauteng are also eyeing Mogale City, have calculated what their chances are in Ekurhuleni and even Tshwane. But I think in Ekurhuleni and Mogale City, they just need each other. I've been hearing murmurs that Ekurhuleni might go red. I've even tweeted as much. I'm not going to tell you more. When the time comes, I'll explain what I mean when I say Ekurhuleni might just be going red. This week, we catch up with ANC Treasurer General Paul Mashatile at his home, a busy man running 3 offices in the ANC and as a candidate for deputy president. So today we're catching up with the Treasurer General of the ANC. We can call him TG. Some will say you've got him as the Acting Secretary General of the ANC, Acting Deputy Secretary of the General of the ANC. He's got a lot of hats on at the moment. And of course, if you are watching the ANC's race, his name is coming up province after province after province, as ANC branches nominate leaders that they want to see, their preferred candidates ahead of the December conference. I'm talking about Paul Mashatile. We catch up with him at his home here in Johannesburg. Very quick catch up. Thank you for making time for us. I understand you're a very busy man.
Yes, thank you very much, Tshidi, for coming to see me.
Before I even start speaking about the business of conference or the multiple roles you play, your name is coming up everywhere. Everywhere where nominations are being spoken of, Paul Mashatile's name is not left behind. What is that like for you, where province after province you're hearing your name, people saying you're fit to lead?
Well, I'm humbled by the confidence that the branches of the ANC have in me. As you know, that for many years, I always make myself available to serve where the branches of the ANC wants me to serve. So I'm doing this work now. Should the branches want me to do something else in the next term, I will oblige.
Are you sitting and waiting for the branches to give a lead? Because the ANC is slightly different from what it was. You've got the electoral committee that's allowed a little bit more relaxation as far as lobbying is concerned and the rules are concerned. The ANC is a different ANC almost to what it was. And with that, you should be able to openly say, I'm not just available to what they want. I'm also eyeing that position of deputy president of the ANC.
Well, you're quite right. The ANC is modernizing. And one of the decisions we took was that we should allow leaders of the ANC to be able to campaign within specific rules. Those rules have been adopted by the NEC, and so there are do's and don'ts, and all candidates have to comply with that. If you use money to book venues, whatever, for your campaign, you need to disclose that to the organization, so there will be a record of those who are campaigning. So it's a good thing for people to go out there and say, look, I'm available to do this or that for this position or that. I mean, in my case, at the moment, it's a bit difficult because of the job I do. There's a lot of work at the ANC now with BGMs that I need to approve, go through documentation, raise money for the ANC, including for salaries. So I've not had really enough time to start campaigning. I'm hoping that at some point I may have the opportunity to go around campaigning, but I have said to those who speak to me that if I'm nominated, it's okay. If I have an opportunity to campaign at some point, I will do that.
And what message would you have for ANC members when you do that? When you go campaign to be deputy president, why you?
The message is almost the same, which is quite interesting. If you look at all the candidates, everybody talks about renewal. For me, I think that's the correct way to go, because we come from a period where the ANC has been battered, almost in decline in many areas. If you look at the research that is coming out, you can see that there are many people out there who are beginning to raise doubts about whether the ANC is the party to back up in the coming elections in 2024. So we need to change all that. So as part of the leadership of the ANC going forward, I see my role as rebuilding the party, rebuilding an organization that can regain people's trust, an organization that's able to deliver, do things on time, take firm decisions, implement them. Because sometimes our problem is not so much that we don't have the right policies, but we are very slow at implementing the right policies. So then we get into trouble. So I see myself really assisting with that and saying, let's build a better ANC, the ANC that can be trusted, the ANC that gets things done. Back to the basics. Let's get things done. That's really what we should be doing.
If you get over the threshold and you are deputy president of the ANC in December, what happens to you? Do you want to stay at Luthuli House and see that vision that you speak of through? Or do you automatically go to government as we've seen? Most leaders are elected into positions. You then don't have to be full-time at Luthuli House. Where would you want to be? Do you miss being in government?
Well, I have not been in government for some time, as you know, since I left 2018. Let me say I've enjoyed working in the space where I work. There's currently no vacancy of deputy president in government.
For now, yes.
Yes, until 2024. So anybody who gets elected deputy president of the ANC at this stage stays where they are. Should there be a vacancy, that would be a different story. But for now, I work at Luthuli House and I will work there until I'm told there's a vacancy elsewhere.
The way the ANC has played itself out now is that often vacancies are created out of nowhere. In fact, what you often see after conferences is vacancies popping up all over the place. Is it now the norm? Think about Gauteng. Gauteng, as I speak, Panyaza Lesufi is the new Premier. David Mabuza, following a provincial conference of the ANC in Gauteng, pretty much fell. We saw the same happen to former President Thabo Mbeki after National Conference, to former President Cyril Ramaphosa, Nomvula Mokonyane. Is that the norm, that ANC leaders in government will not finish their terms of office?
I don't think it's a norm. I think you must look at each and every circumstance. If you look at KZN, my recollection is that Comrade Sihle requested...
He saw the writing on the wall. He knew it was coming.
Yeah, but the point I'm making, that he set out to leave. In fact, the leadership, they said, no, stay. And he said, no, I think it's time for me to go. Same thing with Gauteng. At least Comrade Makura did speak to me, because we worked together for many years. You recall that I was, at some point, the chairman of the ANC Gauteng when he was secretary. So he came to see me and he said, look, I'm going to hand over to the new leadership. I think it's the right thing to do, because in his view, he was looking at a situation where the next state of the province address should be delivered by somebody who will be premier in the next term. So he saw a situation where this handover should start now and it should be a smooth one. As you can see, there are no fights. He came back after his trip overseas and said, look, when you guys are ready with a new premier, I will hand over. I guess they've done so today, and that's the right thing. So we're not in the habit of chasing anybody. So after December, you won't see any chasing. Should there be a vacancy for whatever reasons, then we will make some movements. But for now, let's say, let everybody finish their term.
You paint a very interesting picture, and I think it's closer to the truth. What's the truth around Sihle Zikalala, around former President Premier David Mabuza. But I want you to help me understand how December will play itself out into January 2023, considering what's happened to two former presidents of the ANC and their roles in government.
Where I sit, I don't see any change really. If somebody is in a position for a particular term, let them serve that position. If somebody says, look, I would like to leave, well, the organization, most cases will accept that, sometimes reluctantly. But we are not in the habit of pushing people out, because I think there's always a fear that, the new leadership comes in, we are now in, you leave. No, it doesn't work that way. But also sometimes, remember, the new leadership might have to strengthen certain areas of work. So without pushing people, you might want to make certain changes where you see their weaknesses. And I think that is perfectly acceptable, because we're going to elections in 2024. Should the new leadership after December realize that in this particular area we are weak with the current incumbent, it would really be correct for them to then strengthen that area. Maybe not even pushing someone out, but maybe shifting them to another responsibility where they can do better.
That's a very interesting. It's a very interesting picture to play out in my head.
It is.
Should the current ANC president, Cyril Ramaphosa, serve a second term?
Well, from where I sit, he has said he will confirm in December to the branches whether he's available, but he is being nominated to serve a second term.
As Paul Mashatile, who served alongside him, do you think he should serve a second term?
Well, I have no problem if the branches want him. I've said this before. In fact, if I recall, I was the first to say it publicly that I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, you must love politicians because he's not answering my question at all. Let's try that again. Do you have confidence in Ramaphosa to continue as the ANC president, as Paul Mashatile, not the branches, as somebody who served alongside him? Do you believe that he's still the right person and still capable to continue at the helm of the ANC?
No, I don't think it will be correct for me to motivate or demotivate him. I think for now, let's allow the branches to make that assessment. They probably are assessing all of us. And the day I hear the president in an interview saying, I don't think Paul is doing well, it will be a problem.
I can't wait for the ANC to get there where people are honest publicly about each other's performance.
It's really not for me to say the president's doing well or not. The assessment comes from the ground. The branches are happy with
it will show itself out.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing about you. I asked Cyril Ramaphosa quite recently about whether he led with some level of courage, if he thinks he did. You've had a relatively challenging period in the office. Not only did you have to play your role, you had to take on the other roles of the ANC and the Secretary General's office of the ANC. You've had the issue of non-payment of staffers, which we as journalists raise time immemorial, because they, as your staffers, raise this time immemorial themselves. There is the issue of claims against you that you've been using the engine of the organization to further your own ambitions. When you sit back and you look at all these claims that are leveled around you, against you, do you then sit as Paul Mashatile and still say to yourself, I've done my job during this tenure to the best of my capabilities with the right conviction, integrity, and courage?
Indeed, you've answered. Let me put it this way. Somebody had to step in when Comrade Jesse was not well. As you know, the Secretary General is still on suspension. So the NEC asked me to do that. And the reason why is because I'm also full-time at Luthuli House. And most of the officials are in government, as you know. But also I brought with me the experience of having been a secretary for many years. I was a secretary of the ANC in Gauteng for more than 7 years. So that experience helped to pull the secretary's office together. The story about me using this office to further my own ambition, far from the truth. In fact, I spent more time helping provinces, regions, their BGM. I had to run more than 35 regional conferences. Now 7 provincial conferences are done. It's a lot of work. And I do it to the best of my ability, with integrity. I'm sure if I was not doing this with integrity, I would have been long removed.
I don't know. The ANC is about the balance of forces in those meetings, in the NEC meetings. And if the numbers are in favor of it, there's nothing they can do. They can be upset. They can try. And what we hear often is that there are attempts, but it goes nowhere.
No, let me conclude. You also asked about salaries. Look, the ANC is an NGO when all is said and done. It's not a business. So it relies on donations from time immemorial. The ANC has always lived on donations. We do have resources, little bit from levies and membership fees, only 12% of our income. We get a bit of money from government, about 18% of our income. 70% we go and raise from the private sector. So if you don't get money from the private sector, then you have a big problem. When the new law was introduced in 2021, that requires transparency and disclosure, many businesses started being reluctant to help, but others are still helping. But the problem is that the law also prescribes a limit of 15 million a year as a threshold. So once a company has donated 15 million in a year, they can only donate the next year. So you then get constrained in fundraising. That's really our challenge. Our staff knows that. As soon as we get money, we pay them. But sometimes money doesn't come when you need it. You find that some funders will say, no, we'll give you money next week, and the next week comes, they say, okay, we have this challenge, maybe we'll give you the following week. So it's always a challenge, but we're doing our best. As soon as money is available, we pay our staff. It is not true that staff at Lutilwa spent months without being paid. It has never happened.
Are they lying to the media?
Oh, yeah, it's not true. It can be a month, but the following month we pay, or if we are really late, sometimes it's 2 months. But it's not months and months and months. It's not true.
You think people exaggerate it for fun?
Yeah.
That people are struggling?
Yeah, but
that your staff is struggling?
Some of the people who are saying these things are not even ANC staff.
It's for political expediency. When you look at your tenure of office, because this is one of the other questions that do need to be answered, even by branches and us as outside observers, is if we say this NEC has failed to rise to the occasion, you are a part of that.
Indeed.
Do you agree that it's failed to rise to the occasion?
I can't define myself outside of the current NEC. I think sometimes the work of the NEC is not quite understood. People draw conclusion quickly to say this NEC has failed. I think that's far from the truth. It's not so. It is this NEC that has won the elections in 2019. This ANC.
But it's on a downward trajectory, this NEC.
Yeah, but the downward trajectory can't be blamed entirely on the NEC. We've got branches, we've got regions, we've got provinces. So it's the whole ANC.
So ANC
when there's a weakness, it's a weakness of the whole ANC, not just the NEC. I think it's unfair to say it's a failure of the NEC.
As you make that remark, think about Gauteng. You were chair of Gauteng when we started seeing it taking also a downward turn. When you look at where Gauteng is now, I keep saying it's holding on to Gauteng by a shoestring, the ANC. Some are hoping Panyaza Lesufi's popularity might assist, and whatever campaign vision they have for the campaign, they'll start working on it sooner rather than later. When you also look at that, what goes to mind where you're one of the former leaders who are responsible for this province. This is the economic hub of the country. You're about to lose it. It doesn't matter what platitudes are said about, our detractors or doomsayers. The facts are the electorate is turning its back on the ANC continuously.
Well, the rescue of the decline in Gauteng will not be achieved solely on Panyaza Lesufi's popularity. It's going to demand hard work by the whole team. Him leading, but he needs to have a team in that executive council in government that is fit for purpose to turn the situation around with the support of the national leadership. There are things that sometimes provinces must do that requires national to support them. So we are ready to support him and the team, because a decline and a loss of Gauteng will be a big loss for the ANC, because it's the engine of the country. If you lose in Gauteng, it doesn't matter whether you win in some other smaller area. So we have to win here. I'm confident that he will give that kind of leadership that will turn things around, but with a team that is strong enough, capable, working with him to do that turnaround. I think they'll do it.
I want to speak a little bit about some of the members some of the names that have been also doing the rounds about the December conference. Dr. Zweli Mkhize's name comes up. I still maintain that he has things to answer and he has to take the public into his confidence around what really happened around digital vibes. When you see his name coming up, he is a fellow comrade of yours. Gauteng seems to have a relationship with KZN and they both seem to want you as a DP. What comes to mind when you see and you hear branches nominating someone like Zweli Mkhize? What does that say to you about the ANC and its renewal message, and the ANC saying it wants to turn a new leaf and it wants to be trusted trusted in how it handles responsibilities in government in the eyes of the public?
My recollection is that Dr. Zweli Mkhize has issued statements several times
Many, yeah.
saying that, look, he's not guilty of what he's alleged to have done. He even said he wants to challenge
the SIU. Definitely challenging the SIU.
Even in the NEC, where the Integrity Commission had said he should step aside, he appealed. So he's in that space where he's saying, these things against me are not true. And I think it's really up to him to clear his name as far as possible.
Would the ANC be in good hands with him as president of the ANC, you think?
Well, it's difficult for me to assess someone before they even get the job.
Yeah, I like how he doesn't want to answer questions. I want to speak about Nomvula Mokonyane. It's also a two-pronged question. Again, the commitment of the ANC to issues of corruption. Nomvula Mokonyane's name comes up quite prominently, quite strongly at the State Capture Commission in the report as well. In the same breath, I have to say, she's the only woman really who's getting a nod from branches, at least from provinces for now. She's a woman who's getting a nod for a Deputy Secretary General's position. On a personal level, find Nomvula Mokonyane is strong enough to be able to be put in charge of the engine as a secretary, not the deputy. It feels like the way some of the ANC leaders are approaching issues of gender, right, and the issues of corruption is almost lackadaisical, like it's second, third, fourth considerations compared to what we think is the outside public, where again, someone like Nomvula Mokonyane's name, she is steeped in allegations of corruption, but again, as a woman, she's the only woman who's making the cut in a deputy post.
No, Comrade Nomvula Mokonyane is a very good organizer, very good leader. So if there are branches that want him to be Secretary General, for me, that should be fine. I think I've seen in some of the social media, there are branches that think that way. Others want her as deputy. But she is a good leader. And I think that's why her name is coming up.
But what does it communicate to the general public, you think, around Nomvula Mokonyane with the allegations that have been leveled in that State Capture report, where people say, well, these are people who sold the country out for chicken pizzas and whiskey, but the ANC is telling us she's still fit to lead. What does that then say to the public, you think?
Well, we come from a particular period where a lot of fingers were pointed against a number of leaders. Some went to the Zondo Commission, explained their side of the story. And to the extent that they continue to lead away from what they were accused of, I think they should be given the benefit of the doubt that they can lead well going into the future.
David Mabuza, Didi Mabuza, have you spoken to him at all? As your name keeps popping up everywhere, one has seen Deputy President serving a second term and the likes, or at least, no, I'm lying, I'm actually really lying. We haven't actually always seen Deputy President serving a second term, but we've seen them ascend into the presidency. His name is nowhere near that conversation, at least for now. It's early days. In politics, guys, things change so quickly. We're not seeing his name coming up as yet. Often they're sent into the presidency. His name is not in that conversation. Your name is there in the seat where he still probably thinks he's still capable of leading. Have you had a conversation with him about all of this and the fact that branches seem to want you to become the next DP?
Comrade Mabuza and I are good friends, and we often don't talk about these things when we meet.
That's hard to believe. Comrades only ever talk about comrade things.
Yeah, no, what I mean, we don't talk about ourselves.
Okay.
To say, oh, you must be deputy or this, because we respect the processes that are unfolding, and I think we should leave it that way. Conference is only in December, not now.
My very last question. What kind of ANC must walk away from Nazareth in December?
ANC that puts people first. ANC that has leaders that will fight corruption, that will implement resolutions of the organization. ANC that will make sure that we grow this economy and create jobs so that There's employment, particularly for young people. The ANC that will continue to fight the scourge of gender-based violence, femicide. We want the ANC that cares, and the leadership that's going to make sure that there's a turnaround, there's renewal, but lastly, the leadership that will ensure that we are united.
So that's Paul Mashatile speaking about his relationship with David Mabuza, whether or not Cyril Ramaphosa should return, Zweli Mkhize's chances, a Nomvula Mokonyane here and there, and also what happens should Paul actually succeed. And it does look like it's headed that way. Should Paul emerge as the deputy president of the ANC, does that mean he becomes the deputy president of the country? He says there's no vacancy yet. I say stick around and watch. We've seen the script before. That's it from us. Catch us again next week. This podcast was produced by Dudu Masuku and Amu Ramela. For Eyewitness News, my name is Tshidi Madia.